Welcome to the Idaho CACFP training, Determining CACFP grain ounce equivalents using the grains measuring chart. Grains are an important part of meals in the Child and Adult Care Food Program. To make sure children and adults get enough grains at CACFP meals and snacks, minimum required amounts for grains are listed in the meal pattern as ounce equivalents. Ounce equivalents tell you the amount of grain in a portion of food. To start with, let's discuss how to use ounce equivalents for grains in the CACFP. To determine how much of a grain item is needed when serving a CACFP meal or snack, use one of these three methods to meet the ounce equivalent serving size. 1. The grains measuring chart. 2. The food buying guide tools, which include both the Exhibit A grains tool and the recipe analysis workbook, which is used to determine ounce equivalents of grains in a standardized recipe. Or 3. The calculation method. In this training, we will review the process for determining the ounce equivalent serving size of grain food items by using the grains measuring chart. The USDA's Team Nutrition Initiative has created a worksheet on using ounce equivalents for grains in the CACFP. You can access the worksheet in both English and Spanish on their website. In the CACFP, grains are measured in units we call ounce equivalents. 1 ounce equivalent of grains is the amount of food you need to make up 16 grams of grains. As you can see, not all crackers contain the same amount of grain per cracker. In today's marketplace, we have big crackers, small crackers, thick crackers, thin crackers, fish and bear-shaped crackers, a lot of different types of crackers. It takes different amounts of different types of crackers to provide 16 grams of grains or 1 ounce equivalent. For example, 20 small cheese crackers contains 16 grams of grain. So 20 small cheese crackers equals 1 ounce equivalent. 12 thin wheat crackers contain 16 grams of grains and equals 1 ounce equivalent. Finally, 5 woven whole wheat crackers are needed to provide 16 grams of grains, or 1 ounce equivalent of grains. Notice you need more of the smaller crackers to get 16 grams of grains, and you need fewer of the larger crackers to get 16 grams of grains. Pages 2 through 4 of the worksheets includes the grains measuring chart. This chart includes household measures of over 40 common grain items listed in alphabetical order. You can find the names of the grain items in the first column of your chart. Each item is listed with the amount of the item you need to make up a 1/2 ounce equivalent of grains, which is the minimum amount of grains required for 1 through 5-year-olds at all CACFP meals and snacks. This is shown on the second column of each chart. Each item is also listed with the amount you need to make up 1 ounce equivalent of grains, which is the minimum amount of grains that 6 through 18-year-olds need at meals and snacks. If you choose to serve grains to adult participants as part of a CACFP snack, you must serve at least 1 ounce equivalent of grains as well. And finally, each grain item in this chart is listed with the amount of an item you need to make up 2 ounce equivalents of grains. 2 ounce equivalents of grains is the minimum amount of grains required for adult participants at breakfast, lunch, and supper. As I mentioned, this chart has over 40 grain items that might be commonly served in the CACFP. If you want to serve a grain item that is not listed on this chart, we will talk about other tools you can use at the end of today's session. This chart is designed to grab and go, so someone can pick it up and start using it. For those who might like instructions, we also include steps on how to use the chart on page 1 of the worksheet. So let's take a look at page 1 now. You can find directions on how to use the chart on the bottom of the first page. To use the chart, the first step is to find the grain you want to serve under the grain item and size column. Let's say you want to serve popcorn at snack to 10-year-olds at your after-school site. The first step is to find popcorn in the grains measuring chart. After you find the item you want to serve, check and see if there is a size or weight by the name of the grain item. Popcorn does not have a size or weight listed by the name, so you don't need to first verify that the popcorn we want to serve weighs a certain amount or is a certain size. You can move on to the next step. The third step is to find the column for the age of your participants and the meal or snack you are serving. If you want to serve popcorn to 10-year-olds at snack, you will look for the 6 through 18-year-olds column and follow that column all the way down to the popcorn row. The popcorn row and the 6 through 18-year-old column intersect at 3 cups. This tells us that we need to serve 3 cups of popcorn to meet the minimum amount of grains required for 6 through 18-year-olds at snack in the CACFP. Let's take a look at mini twist hard pretzels now. They are sometimes also called tiny twists, and an example of these pretzels are shown here. The first step is the same. We find our food in the chart. Step 2 tells us that if the chart lists a size by the grain item's name, then we need to make sure the grain item we want to serve is the same size or larger than the size listed on the grain's measuring chart. In this case, our pretzel must be at least 1 1/4 inch long by 1 1/2 inches wide. So how can you tell the size of the pretzel you want to serve? Page 6 of the worksheet provides more information about measuring and sizes, so let's take a look at page 6 now. The bottom of page 6 has a section called Grains Measuring Tools that you can use to see if your item is the same size or larger than what's listed on the grains measuring chart. You will see that there are some shapes for common sizes of crackers and other grains, such as circles and squares, as well as a ruler at the bottom. If you had a grain item that matches the shapes in the grains measuring tools, such as a round cracker, you could measure the item with a ruler on the bottom as shown on the screen with the cracker labeled Option 1. You could also place the grain item over the shape to see if the item was the same size or larger, as you see with the cracker labeled Option 2. Either method of measuring would be correct. The grain item in our example is pretzels, and because there are no pretzel shapes in the grains measuring tools, we will use the ruler at the bottom to measure our pretzel. Let's take a look at the pretzel now. The ruler shows us that this pretzel is about 1 1/2 inches across. Let's rotate the pretzel to see how tall it is. This ruler shows that the pretzel is 1 1/2 inches tall as well. Now we know that the pretzel measures 1 1/2 inches wide by 1 1/2 inches tall. Step 2 showed us that the pretzel had a measurement next to it, so we made sure our pretzel was the same size or larger than the measurement on the chart. Because our pretzels were larger, we knew we could use the grains measuring chart to see how many pretzels we needed to meet the minimum amount of grains required at CACFP meals and snacks. Our last step was to find the age of our participants and the meal. We are serving 8-year-olds at snack, and 8-year-olds fall into the age group of 6 through 18-year-olds. We follow the 6 through 18-year-olds column down to the pretzel hard mini twist row. If you look at where the 6 through 18-year-olds column meets the pretzel row, it tells us that we need to serve 14 hard mini twist pretzels to meet the minimum amount of grains required at snacks for this age group. So far, we've talked about what you do if you have a grain that doesn't have a weight or measurement next to it, like our popcorn, as well as what you do if it has a measurement next to it, such as the mini twist hard pretzels. Now let's talk about what to do if you find your item in step 1 and the item has a weight next to it, like pita bread. Going back to the front page of your worksheet, step 2 tells us that if the chart lists a minimum weight by the grain, such as at least 56 grams, then we need to use the nutrition facts label for the item to make sure that item weighs the same or more than the grain on the chart. When we look at the nutrition facts label, we will be looking at the information in the serving size line. This label for brand P pita bread rounds shows us that one serving of brand P pita rounds weighs 57 grams. This label also shows us that there is one pita round in one serving. Therefore, we know that one brand P pita round weighs 57 grams. We have now confirmed the weight of the pita bread in the chart is at least 56 grams. The nutrition facts label for brand P pita rounds tells us that one pita round weighs 57 grams. Because one brand P pita round weighs more than the pita listed in the grains measuring chart, we know we can use the chart to tell us how many brand P pita rounds to serve in order to meet CACFP meal pattern requirements. Now that we've checked that brand P pita rounds weighs the same or more than the pita bread listed in the grains measuring chart, The last step is to find the column for the age of your participants and the meal or snack you are serving. Step 2 showed us that the pita bread had a weight of at least 56 grams next to it, so we made sure the pita bread we wanted to serve was the same weight or heavier than the weight listed in the chart. Because the pita bread we wanted to serve was heavier than the one listed in the grains measuring chart, we knew we could use the grains measuring chart to see how much of the pita bread we needed to meet the minimum amount of grains required at CACFP Meals and Snacks. Our last step was to find the age of our participants at the meal. We are serving 3-year-olds at lunch, so we would choose the 1 through 5-year-olds column. We follow the 1 through 5-year-olds column down to the pita bread round row. If you look at where the 1 through 5-year-olds column meets the pita bread round row, it tells us that we need to serve 1/4 or 1/4 of the pita bread round to meet the minimum amount of grains required at snacks for this age group. So, with the brand P pita bread, we saw that 1 pita round was 1 serving and that 1 pita round weighed 57 grams. But sometimes, the nutrition facts label will list more than 1 item as a serving, such as 2 taco shells or 3 pancakes. Page 5 of the worksheet looks at what to do when that happens. So let's take a look at page 5 now. The first step in page 5 is the same as the first step on page 1. Find the grain item and its minimum weight in the grains measuring chart. Note that on page 5, the example we are using here is pancakes, so we look at the row that says pancakes and find a minimum weight of at least 34 grams. The second step is to look at the weight of the serving size for the pancakes we want to serve. On nutrition facts labels, the weight listed is usually for 1 serving of the food. Looking at the label for brand P pancakes, we see that 1 serving of brand P pancakes weighs 117 grams. Our next step is to look at how many items are in 1 serving. Looking at this nutrition facts label, we see that there are 3 pancakes in 1 serving of brand P pancakes. On page 4, step 4 tells us that if we have greater than 1 item in a serving, you will need to divide to find out how much 1 item weighs. Because 1 serving of brand P pancakes has 3 pancakes, we know we will need to divide to find out the weight of 1 pancake. We know from step 3 that 1 serving weighs 117 grams. We also know that there are 3 pancakes in 1 serving, so we divide 117 by 3 to find the weight of 1 pancake. Upon completion, we conclude that 1 brand P pancake weighs 39 grams. Now that we know the weight of 1 pancake, we can compare that weight to the weight of the pancake listed in the grains measuring chart. If the weight of the item you want to serve is the same weight or heavier than what's listed in the grains measuring chart, you can use the grains measuring chart to see how much of that item you need to serve to meet CACFP meal pattern requirements. In this example, the weight of 1 brand P pancake is 39 grams, and based on the grains measuring chart, 1 pancake must be at least 34 grams. The brand P pancake is at least 34 grams, so you can use the chart to determine the serving size needed by age group. Based on the chart, 1/2 pancake would meet the serving size for children ages 1 to 5 years old, and 1 pancake would meet the serving size for children ages 6 to 18 years old. Finally, although there are many times you could use this worksheet, there are times that this worksheet may not be appropriate for determining grains ounce equivalents. In those cases, you will need to use the Exhibit A grains tool located in the Food Buying Guide. In conclusion of this session, let's cover some instances where you might need to use another tool instead of the grains measuring chart. When an item you want to serve is not listed on the chart, an item you want to serve is smaller or lighter than what's listed in the chart, or you don't know the size or dimensions of the grain you want to serve. So, let's say you see a new type of cracker that's on sale, and you want to serve it. But because you've never served it before, you don't have one on hand that you can measure. You may also want to use a different tool if you are serving a grain item to meet part of the grains requirement, such as if you wanted to serve 1/4 ounce equivalent, 3/4 ounce equivalent, or 1.5 ounce equivalent, because this chart only lists amounts for 1/2 ounce equivalent, 1 ounce equivalents, and 2 ounce equivalents of grains. Additionally, while you could use the chart with grain items that are larger or heavier than what's listed on the chart, if you wanted to serve exactly what was required in the CACFP meal patterns, that might be another time that you choose to use a different tool. This concludes determining CACFP grain ounce equivalents using the grains measuring chart. Thank you for joining us today. This training is funded using U.S. Department of Agriculture 2018 Training Grant Funds awarded to Idaho Department of Education to provide training to sponsoring organizations, center CACFP employees, and daycare home providers.